there, warriors, and welcome to another episode of Chevrons, the podcast for the enlisted force. I will be one of your hosts, Chief Master Sgt. Sean Sullivan.
And I am A1C, Francesca Scridulis.
So before we introduce our guest, I just wanted to, Airman Scridulis, how's Chevrons doing out in the ANGB world?
Well, in case you all did not know, we've almost got a year on the books, and just prior to that, we won first place in the podcast category at the National Guard Bureau Media Awards.
Outstanding. Yes, everybody always said I had a face for radio, so I am glad that we accomplished that milestone. We couldn't have done it without our key engineer behind the helm. That would be Tim Sandlin, who is a big part of this broadcast, and I could not have done this without you. And thank you for being here and mentoring me through this. And congratulations to the two of you, because that's your award, and it's a pretty outstanding thing, the 2021 ANGB Media Awards for Chevron. So we wouldn't be there without our listenership, so I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to this podcast and who listens to it. I hope we are providing you with some value, and thank you. We appreciate you.
That is outstanding. Congratulations on the award,
yeah.
and thank you for having me on the show.
No, thank you.
Today we are joined by two great guests, Staff Sgt. Julianne Sharon, an intelligence analyst from the 104th Fighter Wing.
And a great longtime friend of mine and former First Sergeant is Chief Master Sgt. Alex Gross. On the drill status end, he is the SEL for the MSG at the 169th. And on a full-time position, he is working as the Total Force Awareness Manager out of the Pentagon. Chief Gross, how are you today?
Doing all right, brother. Doing all right.
Thank you both for joining us. I want to start with having you both tell us a little bit about yourself and your military story and what got you to your current positions. And I want to start with you, Staff Sgt. Sharon. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. Staff Sgt. Sharon, go by MELD. I joined the Massachusetts Air National Guard back in 2016. And right from there, I spent about 9 months home, went to tech school, went to BMT before that, obviously, and then eventually landed back at Barnes Air National Guard Base in May of 2018. Since then, I've been full-time, so living the glorious full-time intelligence analyst job at a fighter wing is awesome.
And I have to throw it out here because I had a really, really awesome brief from you not too long ago, and your supervisor told me that you recently graduated from a really outstanding and demanding course. What course would that be? So
that would be called the Intelligence Weapons School course. It goes by AIC for the enlisted side, and then throughout the officer side, it's going to be known as WIC. But bottom line here is AIC is going to be a course that helps prepare intelligence analysts to plan any type of mission for anywhere in the world at any time.
Now, I see the weapons patches get worn all the time, for various AFSCs. I know just a little bit about it, but how long is the school?
The school is 5.5 months, but you spend much longer than that spinning up for it. And then also when you graduate, doing what you were sent there to do, which was teach other individuals, other intelligence analysts, the processes throughout the intelligence community and how we can be more effective for any type of mission that we need to plan for.
Wow, and I know that's a pretty high-speed course, so congratulations on completing that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
And Chief Gross, same question to you, sir.
So mine started a little while ago. So I started in 2000, came onto the Reg Af side and the active component, working maintenance on AC-130U model gunships. Loved the time on there. Cross-trained into contracting in about 2006. In 2010, I switched over to the reserves in education and training, and then in 2014, became a first sergeant in the Air National Guard. And then in 2021, got picked up as the MSG SEL down at the 169th, and dual hatting right now with working at the Air Force DSI Total Force Integration Office. So bounced around a little bit, And then when I'm not doing the guard thing, I work as an Air Force civilian up at Joint Base Andrews.
Now, you mentioned the total force awareness. I had the opportunity to recently be at a training where you actually briefed us on what the role of the office is and what the goal is. For our listening audience, would you mind giving us a rundown of specifically what your office does and what the role is, and what the where we are currently in the National Guard as far as total force, and what's the vision? Where do we want to be?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. And so a couple of things we talked about during the training is what Air Force DSI is, right? So recently, we used to be part of HAF, Headquarters Air Force, and not too long ago, we dropped the H in Headquarters Air Force all across to capture all of the entire Air and Space Force. So now everyone that used to be HAF is now AF. So it's now just Air Force in the Pentagon level. But so we went from HAF to AF DSI, and what we do up there is we work under the Director of Staff in the integration piece. So what that entails is our goal is essentially getting all three components, the active component, the guard component, and the reserve component, working better together. And we do that through what's called associations. Associations are just the formalization of the two components working together. So the MAGCOMs will agree that, okay, yeah, we're going to work together. We're going to share some of the iron, and we're going to share some of the installation, and we're going to share these things. And then at the squadron levels is where that gets really hammered out in terms of how each component and each part of the support teams are actually going to make that happen. So when the reservists, for example, will have access to RegAF iron, or when RegAF will have access to guard iron. And the intent with all that is nobody's getting more manpower. Nobody's getting more resources, right? We always got to find ways to do things better, faster, cheaper, smarter. So there's a ton of advantages to the total force associations, which is what I was just describing, where you essentially increase the utilization and access of your aircraft equipment and other resources. You increase the rotational capacity of standalone air reserve component units. You leverage and share experience, because RegAF folks versus guard or reserve folks are going to have a ton of different experience. You retain experience in the Air Force, that continuum of service, right? So that's a big item that we've got to capitalize more on. So where you've got folks leaving the active side, or you've got folks leaving the guard or reserve side, we need to make sure that we keep those bodies in the Air Force, no matter which component it's in, because when we lose that experience, it's not cheap to replace. And most of the folks that leave are not completely disjointed, that they don't want to serve. A lot just don't know how to serve. And then we get to leverage our skills and manpower along the manpower continuum throughout all three of the components. So there's a lot to unpack with what total force integration is as a whole. But you can do it at the local level just by building relationships with folks in the other components, right? Especially if you've got a reserve or guard unit on a RegAF base. There's no reason why those two units can't work together, or having opportunities to work together for exercise, or having opportunities to work together for surge, all that sort of thing, without necessarily having a full-blown association.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, because I look at what we have in this state, and our Joint Force headquarters is located on the 66th Air Wing, which is a RegAF base, where we have a lot of informal working together, a lot of informal things that we're doing together to bolster and build our relationship. So for states and for people that are in our situation, that is the idea. That's the ongoing process where it's not formal. You're still trying to really push that narrative of that close cooperation and seeking those relationships, even if you don't have formal agreements on a base that is truly joint.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where I would make the argument that you're better suited to try it out at the lower levels than try and force it down, right? The minute you try and force these things, you start to see a lot of pushback. But where you find opportunities for example, in the intel community, right? So even with what Sergeant Sharon with what you're doing, there's probably opportunities that you can share. You can get trained by other intel units, or you can train other intel units, have them come to you and you go to them to work together, especially where you might not necessarily touch every single type of, and forgive me because I'm not that smart on intelligence. I think that goes without saying, right? I'm not that intelligent on intelligence, but there are definitely some opportunities where you can probably work with other components and see how they're doing intel, or even other units within your state. And so the whole purpose is to get people away from that mentality of, no, this is my mission, and I'm the only one who can do this mission, and we're special, to where they kind of isolate themselves, and then to the detriment of the mission. The whole purpose of integrating is to continue pushing the mission forward and finding better, faster, cheaper ways of doing things.
And I know this initiative is specifically designed around the three components, of air. But have you, in your travels, how have you seen this working with other joint components on joint bases, such as we have a joint base here on Cape Cod where we have Coast Guard and Army, or just how it's working in the National Guard between the air and Army components? Are you still tracking best practices on that? Because again, it's as a total entity, as in a total, in my opinion, a total implement of the military arm, that all the branches need to start working more closely and sharing assets. So, any best practices or anything you're picking up on that from around the spectrum?
Well, so we focus primarily on the three components within the air side. There is a joint integration arm that's actually up at OSD, and they're the ones who handle this stuff, where getting the the active component on the Army, the active component on the Marines and whatnot, working together with the active components on the other services, or the Guard or Reserve, getting them to work better together. What I would say is that for the integration within the air side, we're starting to see integration with the space side. We're starting to see on the Guard side specifically, there's 17 total force associations and associates with 16 others as of December. So we're seeing that more and more, and we're seeing more interest on it. So I recently got back from the Wing Commanders course and got to talk to a few Wing Commanders, a few Group Commanders, and a few SELs. And a lot of them love the idea of total force integration. This has been an initiative since, I want to say 2007, and really started getting more steam, I would say around the 2015 timeframe, as resources become depleted. So there's a famous quote out there: "We're out of money, so we've got to start thinking." So that's what we're starting to see. We're starting to see where these opportunities lie, and when resources start coming down, the smart money is, if you found a way to do it better, smarter, cheaper, faster, that's probably where the resources are going to go, right? I can't imagine resources going to folks saying, no, we're the only ones who can do this, and no one else can play in our sandbox, when you've got someone else doing it across the country with 3 other units or 2 other units that have figured it out. Even basic training has associations. We've got folks where you've got Guard, Reserve, and RegAF all working together in all the staffs across the Pentagon. So we're seeing it more and more.
And thank you, Alex. I know we spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's important for our listeners to understand what it is that your office does, and to open up more awareness to it. And I know that you've been working diligently on that at various trainings, and like you said, the squadron officers courses. But I want to switch gears and go back to Staff Sgt. Sharon. A day in the life of an intel analyst over the last 53 days, how has that affected you? I mean, I'm sure that there's been a Yeah. You're working hard, and there's a lot that you can't share with us that you're doing on the intel end. But what's a life in the day like for you now?
Yeah, so obviously we're a 15C squadron, so we are only an air-to-air unit out on the western side of Massachusetts. But our pilots, as well as the entire wing, are deeply concerned with what is going on over in UCOM, and moreover, if it would actually affect us going forward in our operations. So a lot of what we do in the intel shop is getting everyone, and when I mean everyone, I mean the entire wing, spun up on the current events that are happening between Russia and Ukraine, and making sure that everyone is aware of what this means in terms of the United States military and the DoD and us who support the overarching initiative of being in the military. So,
yeah. I did want to ask you, Sergeant Sharon, you mentioned the weapons course, and the point of it is that you learn how to, like, plan missions.
There's a multitude of things that come out of weapons school, and that is a big factor of going to weapons school, is understanding how the entire Air Force actually integrates, not just me looking at an F-15C and F-15C only, but looking at other mission design series or other types of aircraft, even our ground personnel, thinking about our Army units that are helping to support us in any type of operation that we need to do. So integration is a huge aspect, but a lot of weapons school also focuses on instructorship and the ability to teach various concepts to other intelligence analysts or even anyone in the military. You could have a commander that's not even an intelligence analyst. He may be coming from maintenance, asking about a certain topic, and being a weapons instructor, we're actually supposed to effectively teach the concepts that they're asking so that they have a full understanding of what they're asking.
Wow. That's big stuff right there.
Yes, I love when, I see a staff sergeant, and you're still in your first enlistment term?
Yes, sir.
Wow. A weapons school graduate. You are handling material and doing briefings at the highest level. You're already thinking about total force integration concepts, and you're in your 4th or 5th year in the military, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is, where else on earth can you get this kind of development and this kind of, the way we are empowering our airmen at the lowest level? I love it. This is just some outstanding stuff.
I got to tell you, I completely agree. That's impressive. I mean, you are providing the intelligence for, our flyers to go and execute the mission, and you're taking that, synthesizing it and getting it out to folks that are going and executing the mission. And you're on your first enlistment is just that is absolutely amazing. I am impressed to be sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I love stories of, when airmen at all levels step out of their comfort zone and do something, because for the average person to turn around and, hey, do you want to go to this grueling 5.5-month weapons school? Or, even somebody at our level, Chief Gross, where, hey, do you want to totally leave, the 169th Fighter Wing, your home, and go work in the Pentagon? And, the big, scary building, the Pentagon, and oh my God, it just sounds so formidable. But to see our leaders at all levels, both, at the chief level and at the staff sergeant level, are going out of their comfort zones to seek further personal and professional development and to try to move the bar even higher. It's just amazing. I mean, it's so different from back when I started in the 1690s, just to see how we are pushing forward as a force and what we're entrusting our people to do now. It's just really incredible. At the weapons course, is it unusual to have a high enlisted presence and to have somebody at the staff, as a staff sergeant attending? Because usually I would see, people in the weapons school, I see like a lot of lieutenant colonels and majors, predominantly officers, wearing the patches and doing the course. So was it unusual for you?
There are other supporting entities that also have enlisted courses at the weapons school. As far as AIC, which is going to be specific to the Intel Enlisted Weapons School. There is not that many applicants. And with that, they are trying to bolster the numbers and get the word out even more. Like, this is an opportunity. This is a possibility for enlisted to have the same opportunity as the officers do and going through such course. Typically, right now, we'll have around 4 to 5 enlisted members go to the course, but just the number of applicants is still around like the 10-ish number. So not as many as the officer side of the house.
And so we're sitting here in the 102nd Intelligence Wing, Public Affairs Office. So I assume that, you know, a considerable number of our listeners are from the 102nd Intelligence Wing. I'm seeing kind of copying a theme here. So hopefully we get some more enlisted surge there.
Oh, absolutely.
Staff Sergeant Sharon, what were your impressions going into that course versus leaving it? You know, what would you say to someone else considering it?
I think one of the biggest things that I thought of prior to going on the course was actually before I even applied. I had many talks with my Intel SUP and Intel SIO, that's Senior Sutherland and Captain Grimaldi, and I didn't even think I was capable of such course. I was like, guys, I can't do this. Are you kidding me? Like, that is a long course. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of responsibility for one to go to the school and then be asked to do such a big workload. So it really made me nervous, and I just didn't think I was capable of. I ended up applying. I was like, I'm going to do this. It was during COVID year, and I was like, what's the worst I do? They tell me no. Sounds good. Just keep trying. We'll figure it out. I ended up going to the course, still obviously very scared. I'm driving cross country, being like, oh, I don't want to let anyone down. I don't want to be a failure to anyone. Going through the course, you don't think about that. Of course, it's always going to be in the back of your mind, but your intent or your goal is just whatever is next on the event list that you have to achieve. And then you're just head down, skulls up in regards to just figuring out the next task that you need to do. And then you get through the 5.5 months. It doesn't go by in a blink of an eye, but on graduation night, you're like, holy wow, I cannot believe I did such a thing. So I'd highly recommend anyone who is even remotely interested in it, don't be I don't want to say don't be nervous, because I was nervous, but don't let failure stop you from applying to this course, because it does change you.
Now, as far as changes are concerned, from before you came into the military to where you are now, outside of, I'm talking about like as a whole person concept, do you feel that your time that you've spent so far in the Air National Guard has helped develop you outside of the Guard, like as a person, as in any way? Has it helped prepare you in life as to be a better everything?
That's a great question. Absolutely. A biggest thing about being an intelligence analyst is your critical thinking skills and your problem solving skills. So I would like to think, our intel shop back home, I'm sure the intel wing here, whenever we get addressed a problem, we're not looking for like the easy button solution in regards to how to solve the problem. We're thinking of a complex, could be tactical problem that we're now trying to solve. And we're not only just thinking of how to solve it in that moment, but then the secondary and tertiary effects, so that we make sure that our decision is going to be sound in whatever that we need to make. And it makes sense for what we are trying to achieve and whatever that may be. So critical thinking and then problem solving is definitely high up there. But personally for me, it's going to be how to tackle big tactical problems. And that's because a lot of people just look at a problem and are like, oh my God, like that's a lot of things that we're going to have to work through. Like, I don't know if we can do it, guys. Whereas how I perceive that tactical problem is, all right, looks like we got to take step by step until we eventually achieve or solve that tactical problem. And when you take it in bite-sized chunks, it ends up feeding into the holistic picture, which means you come out stronger and better on the other end. So that's how I think through.
I say it all the time, and enlisted professional development doesn't just create better airmen; it creates better people. And Chief Gross, kind of the same question, but you have a lot more time in the military than Staff Sergeant Sharon. So how has the worth of staying in the military changed for you over the years? And what values have you taken out of your time? You're got to be over 20 years now in the military.
That's a good question. Before I jump into that, I want to touch on something that Sergeant Sharon said is regarding, how daunting going to weapons school was, and how you kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do it anyway and see what happens. That's huge, right? That is, and it goes into what you were talking about, or the question that you just asked, Silly, is, just showing up and putting your name in the hat and being required to be told no is a massive boon to your career. It can benefit you in so many ways. And if your peers were to do the same, everybody would be moving forward in such a not necessarily as quickly, but certainly in moving forward in their careers. Because so many times I talk to airmen that are not pushing because they're afraid. They're feared, whether it's NCOA or ALS or senior NCOA, they don't even want to push forward with that because they're afraid. And I think that just that mentality of I'm going to go after it and see what happens works wonders. I have a buddy of mine who would tell me, hey, mentor of mine when I was a master and a senior master, and would tell me, look, proceed until apprehended. Just do what you need to get done. Proceed until apprehended. And my current boss says bias towards action, which is a much more polished version of proceed until apprehended. So basically what I'm getting at is a long way of saying that bias towards action will only help to benefit you in your career and serves as an example to even, folks that are later in their career like myself. So good on you. And that's the right mentality to continue your career. For me, in terms of, what's kept me in is impact, right? Being able to continue my impact. So I was never the type to say I'm staying until, they kick me out, dragging and screaming. I was always I'll continue going until it's either not fun or I'm not impactful. So as long as those two things are there, then it's time for me to continue on. If one of those things falls off, it's time for me to go to the house and let someone else pick up the ball and run with it. Because the last thing I want to do is slow down the momentum of the force. And in terms of values that I've learned along the way, I mean, it's made me a better person in a number of different ways. It's helped me grow and understand perspective in a lot of different ways. So, any of my deployments, you go out there, you see, how good we've got it. It gives you a huge perspective, but it also lets you see in terms of, you go out and you see some of the things that are going right, and then you see some of the things that are going wrong, and you're thinking, man, this can't be how we operate, right? But it helps you recognize the fact that there is no Oz behind the curtain running everything, right? There is no grand plan in terms of, there's 3 people running the entire Air Force. That's not how it works. It works by each one of us executing our mission and finding ways of doing things better. It works because we all when you take ownership of your job, that's what makes the Air Force function. That's what makes us the best Air Force in the world. Is the responsibility, and Sergeant Sharon, your primary example, is the responsibility that we place on our NCO Corps. That's what makes us the best Air Force in the world. That's how some of our sister services, our state partnerships, that's one of the things they love about how the Air Force executes is our NCO Corps. And those are some of the values that I've taken with me in terms of just taking ownership and executing where you can execute, and just having some perspective in terms of what it is that we do on the global stage. We don't always do it right, but we always are working towards that. So a big thing for me is, I don't need it perfect right now, but I do need it better tomorrow. So as long as I can keep getting better and we can keep executing it at a better rate, then we're moving in the right direction.
One key thing that you said there that should resonate to all airmen, and that is to take ownership of your job. And one of the saddest things I think I see when I walk through not just the wings in this state, but I now have the opportunity to visit a great number of wings in a lot of different states. And I always seek out, younger airmen, the E5 and below tier generally, because I want to know how they feel. They're our heartbeat. And it's so sad when I get that, hey, what do? And they start the term with the, I'm just a. What do you do in your military career? Well, I'm just, you pick the job, X, Y, or Z. And it makes me sad because if you were not part of the greatest air force in the world, and I know we are contested now with China, but I still consider us the greatest air superiority power in the world. If you were not valuable, you would not be here. If we did not need you, we would not be here. We need you, all airmen, to take ownership of their job, no matter what it is. And you're not you are an air warrior. That is what your primary job, duty, and functionality is. Whether you're an intel analyst or whether you're the SEL or you're the state command chief or you're a PA person, we need all of you. So, having two really high value, a senior NCO and an NCO on here, having taken ownership of their careers and their jobs, what they do, it's just great to see, and it should be an example out there. So anybody listening to this, you are not just you are essential to the operation of the United States Air Force and the Air National Guard, and we need you. So, listen to a couple of people that are here doing an outstanding job, and they can be you. It doesn't matter what your job is. It can be you as well. So, sorry, I had to get on my soapbox as the state command chief there for a minute, but that it's something I truly believe in, and that's why I think we are the best, because we have so many people try to seek out the best of themselves. You don't end up seeking out the best in yourself without having a couple of mentors along the way. And Staff Sgt. Sharon, you started mentioning some people, but do you have any people along the way that have really helped you on your path to success and motivated you? And do you have anybody that you are now doing the same for and paying it back, paying it forward?
Yeah, I do have a lot of people to thank, especially for where I am here today, because without them, there'd be no way I'd be sitting right here right now. And a lot of them has to deal with the Barnes family. I could name a few, but to be honest, the entire Barnes fighter wing, we are one big family, and I can go to plentiful of people on that base for different reasons, asking for different types of advice, and they're the ones who absolutely really helped me. And then specifically calling out our intel shop. I always tell everyone that asks me, I am very blessed with my leadership and the shop that I'm in. We work very hard, and we also have a lot of events that bring up morale to bring us closer together, like a family. So I'm very appreciative of all of them, and they know that. I say it all the time because I get kind of annoying about that. But anyways, as far as mentoring people, what we do, especially graduating from weapons school, is we want people to achieve what they think they're unable to achieve. And we do that through various spin-up events or even just mentoring on the side for helping them with whatever it may be, whether it's going to be family or if it's going to be work or personal life. So an example of that, sir, just a little bit more on the weapons school side, is last week I was over in Kansas Guard unit, and what I did over there was a weapons school spin-up event for the individuals in the Guard that wish to go to weapons school in the future. And what we did there was we took a lot of instruction, we taught a lot of different concepts, and then we also gave a lot of tips and tricks and advice in regards to those who do wish to apply in the future. So definitely a lot of mentoring through that and learning through those type of events, which is why I really enjoy going out there and doing what I can to pay back not just the rustic, the 19th Weapons Squadron community, but also the intelligence community, because we need every asset of the intel community. I don't care if you're just a fighter intel. I don't care if you're only a DGS intel. We all eventually work together to get the job done.
Absolutely. One team. Chief Gross, same question to you, sir. Key mentors, and I personally, I know you. I know how many people you're mentoring, including this state command chief over in Massachusetts who's always calling you for advices. But what were some of your key mentors?
So I appreciate that. I certainly appreciate the kind words. I think mentorship is interesting because we've tried to formalize it, and the reality is that mentorship is not a formal function, right? When you formalize it, it starts to lose some of its I don't know, some of its luster. But the reality is that I've had a ton of mentors, right? Some have probably run away from me, right? You don't realize, that you're being mentored sometimes, and you don't realize that you're mentoring. And what I would say is I've had some great mentors along the way. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine, every time I go down to drill, I give him a shout and say, hey, you available for lunch or dinner to chat. He's been out for a few years now, but I still chat with him to get. You never know when you're going to get those nuggets of knowledge. Another buddy of mine that he's getting ready to retire. He's kind of checked me a few times, give me the reality checks that I need that kind of bring you back to where give you some perspective. What I would say about in terms of mentoring folks, be honest with people, give them honest feedback, give them the things they're doing well, the things that they need to correct, and just listen. I didn't even realize. So I was deployed to Niger not too long ago, and then probably 4 or 5 months after I got back, I get a phone call from an airman who just made Staff Sergeant. Right, this is an airman who he and I'd had a couple conversations. You never know who's whether or not folks are listening to you or if you're just banging on and going off into cyberspace with no one listening to the words you're saying. But this Staff Sergeant, I'm sure he's wearing it now, gave me a call to thank me about some of the discussions that we had. And those are those moments that you're like, wow, you don't recognize the impact that you have. You don't recognize the impact that a single conversation can have. And so what I would say about mentorship is, yes, definitely have had some along the way and maybe helped a few folks along the way. But just have those candid conversations with folks, help them figure out, what direction they want to go. And then, you can learn from anybody, right? So, just having this conversation, I'm learning about weapons school things that I had no idea about in terms of who can go, right? I know we've got some young intel officer or young intel enlisted that would probably love to go to this thing. And they may not even know it's available. So when I go back to my wing and I see a couple of the intel guys, I'm like, hey, did you know this was even an option? Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, that might spark 1 or 2 airmen going in the next 5 to 10 years, and you have no idea that you've opened that door. But at the end of the day, you've had that impact. And so what I would say is just share your experiences and recognize that you may be able to impact folks in a positive way that you didn't even realize.
I agree, and I was having a conversation with somebody just the other day when they were talking about, well, why don't you share that with your people? And I don't like to talk about myself. And it's like, you know what? It's not about you. It's about your story. And that's why, I think some people that are a little slow, to try to engage people and get them going, they feel like it's, bravado. It's about me, look at me. And that's really not the case. I think when you look at leaders across the board, and I'm talking about, leaders, I'm not talking about rank, because you can be an airman basic and be a leader. But when you look at leaders across the board, they are conveying a story to instill an emotional response in somebody to reach into self-improvement. And it's not about them. So if you're out there and you're listening and you know people and you want to share with them and help motivate them and get them to the next level, it's not about you. It's about your story. And you never know when that story or that little tidbit of information you have can help somebody and get them over to the next level and get them into a weapons school or get them to go really outside the box and try this really cool assignment in the Pentagon or become a public affairs person and jump in behind a microphone.
Yeah.
Especially mistakes, right? Helping people through your mistakes and sharing some of the errors that you've made can help them prevent them, but it also opens you up and creates some opportunities to build on that relationship.
Oh, and people are sometimes unwilling to share failure, and that is one thing I'm totally opposed to. I will tell anybody openly about my failures because you learn more about yourself when you fail at something and recover and re-level your wings. It's why pilots all the time, they always practice all these recoveries from all these catastrophic things that happen in an aircraft, and it's how you recover. And so, share the good and the bad, but particularly the bad.
It's about being human too, you know.
Absolutely.
Like Sergeant Sharon was saying, the worst thing that happens is they say no, you fail. As an airman in the Rising, the one thing that I want to know from the chiefs that I meet, from the people that made it, is, what's the worst thing that happened to you when you failed? So, yeah.
And I think that, Chief Gross and I could both say what's the worst thing that happened. We learned from it, recovered, and that took two steps forward after that.
Yeah, definitely. Chief Gross, I did want to ask you, you said that one of the strengths that the Air Force has is our NCO Corps. When we're looking at joint force integration, component integration within the Air Force, what are some of the strengths that each of our components have that we're really benefiting from when we meet with those other groups? We do some joint activities, those total force associations get together and make things happen. What's the benefit there for each group?
So there's a couple different questions there, right? So if you're talking from the joint perspective and you're talking about the different services, each service has their own culture. And we can obviously learn from how the Army and the Marine Corps and even the Navy execute their particular missions. And they can certainly learn how we execute our missions. We're much more of a corporate structure. We are much more open to dissent in the proper in the proper way and in the tactful way, whereas they not as much, depending on the career field. From the total force perspective within the Air Force, across the three components, each component has their own culture, to be sure. So having been part of the active component, the reserve component, and the guard component, I can tell you that each one executes their mission in somewhat different ways, right? They each have a different perspective. The RegAF tends to be a younger crew, a younger group, right? Whereas the reserve and the guard tend to be have a little bit more experience, a little bit more age behind them. Especially the guard, I would say, is probably, without seeing the statistics, I would guess that the average age would probably be from low to high, the active, the reserve, and the guard components. And what I would say is that each component learns quite a bit from each other. So when I was RegAF, I tended to think that the reserve component and the guard component, because they only work 39 days a year, were not good at what they did. What I failed to understand was that they are probably doing it on the commercial side. And something that Chief Brown brought up during our total force integration symposium is each reserve and guard airmen are by definition multifaceted, because they're coming in, they're doing a job in the guard or reserve, and they're doing a job on the civilian side. A lot of times they're similar, but I can tell you, law enforcement on the military side, and Silly, correct if I'm wrong, law enforcement on the military side is very different than the civilian side.
Oh yeah.
So you're coming in with two very different experiences in one person. So you're getting two perspectives from one person, which is huge. The RegAF stays very focused on what their mission set is, day in and day out. For the Guard and Reserve, especially the traditionals, when they're doing that job on the civilian side, a lot of times they're finding the best practices, the best way of doing business. And for an HVAC professional, for example, right? You've got the folks that are doing out the air conditioning and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. For the Air Force, and you've got on the side, they're doing it for the commercial sector. Well, guess who is doing it probably better, faster, cheaper, and smarter? Guess who's learning the best ways of doing business, the most current ways of executing, HVAC repair. Those are the folks that are doing it on the civilian side. They come in, they bring it into the for their drill. They're working with a RegAF association. They're able to bring that experience and show, hey, this is a better way of doing business. So that's where we get some huge advantage culturally. So when units integrate from a total force perspective, nobody's asking for them to lose their culture, because their culture is what makes them different and better. And it creates that organizational and cognitive diversity that helps just the thrive the military, thrive the Air Force. It helps the Air Force thrive as it progresses forward, because we are at the lowest manpower we've ever been, and we're not going to see that go up anytime in the near future. So how are we going to be able to continue to execute the mission and execute the Air Force mission, the national defense strategy at the highest levels with lower and lower manpower? We have to we integrate, right? We diversify our thought, we diversify our means of doing things, and that helps us find the best and most effective ways of executing the mission.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief.
I'm just going to have one final question, and that's just, what are your final thoughts? I mean, each person here, we've been asking all the questions. I mean, what would you like to add, Sergeant Shannon, to anything that we've covered today? Would you like to add anything? Anything else you'd like to tell us?
I would like to share my favorite quote or concept, if you will. It's something that I think about a lot, and I think I can apply it to almost anything I do in life, whether it's military, civilian, physical fitness, anything that it may be. And that quote is playing to win versus playing to not lose. I love that quote, because on the playing to win side, what you're doing is you have to be aggressive. You have to be proactive, think 2-3 steps ahead of whatever you're trying to do. You're doing whatever it takes to achieve your ultimate end goal. Versus playing to not lose is a concept that essentially saying you're going to do the bare minimum to pass whatever task that it may be. You're going to be reactive. You're not going to have a great attitude in regards to whatever you're trying to achieve. And when you really start reading into that concept online, which I've done a lot of research on, it really just goes to show the type of human that you want to be, not just in the military, but in life itself. You want to be the people that people go. You want to be the person that people go to in terms of advice, saying, "Hey, how do I solve this problem? Hey, what do I do with this assignment?" You want them to come to you for anything. You don't want them to be intimidated by you, and you want to make sure that you have good approachability and humility skills, because those are really important factors in any type of scenario that may come across wherever you are in life.
Wow. We can almost mic drop there.
Right, that's exactly
that was
what I was
outstanding. I like that. And it's so apropos, because I don't know how many times we've watched a sports team, and you see it all the time. They have momentum, they have drive, they're being successful, and then they start playing to not lose. And what inevitably happens, they end up, whittling away at their advantage. So to take that and applying it to self and to, the whole person concept, etc., that was pretty outstanding. Chief Gross, you got to follow that up.
Yeah, that's a tough discussion point to follow, to be sure. I mean, I completely agree with that sentiment. First, I just like to say, hey, thank you very much for having me on. A great opportunity to discuss some of these topics. What I would say, final thought would be, on the line of quotes, is luck is what happens when opportunity meets preparation. So where that comes in is get to where you continue prepping yourself as you move forward, whether it's your career, whether it's for your job, whatever it's for. Just being prepared so that when the next opportunity comes, you're able to jump on it. The other thing I would mention is when General Brown speaks, he tends to talk about one particular moment where he was out in doing his thing internationally, and he realized that some of the discussion points that he was really in the know about were more localized. So he likes to say less Sports Illustrated and more Economist. And so what I would how I would apply that to the enlisted force, to be sure, is be smart on current events, be smart on world events, be smart on what's going on locally, but understand what's going on internationally so that you have a better perspective of what's going on. And not only does it help shape your frame of mind, it also shapes how you approach things in general, whether it be in your home life or whether it be in your work life. But it helps really give perspective, and that's something that we all just need to keep, especially as we see what's going on in the world.
Definitely. Thank you both for your time here. We appreciate all of it. I am thoroughly impressed, Staff Sgt. Sharon, with you as a human being, and definitely that I strive to be more like, I think. And then Chief, definitely thank you for all your experience and wisdom here today. I would like to put out there, we are co-located with the Space Force here on Cape Cod, and one of the Sergeant Floyd, is organizing an esports tournament for all military active, reserve, guard, Space Force, Army. Everybody's invited. And you can get information for that with your first sergeants or probably the 102nd Intelligence Wing's social media.
And Sergeant Floyd was a guest here on Chevrons several episodes back, and another outstanding leader that we have in our armed forces. And in closing, I just wanted to again thank both of you for being here. The coolest thing about the Chevrons podcast is that when we reach out and we just, we grab a senior enlisted person and then we grab an E5 or below and we bring them on here and we get their perspective. And it is just, there is no, other than the gap in where you are in your career and your level of responsibility, there is no gap that I see whatsoever in the knowledge and the skills and the ability and the competencies as airmen of the people we bring on here. Now, there's differences in roles and responsibilities, and there's your different paths of your career, but it's just so outstanding to have a staff sergeant of your caliber and a chief of Chief Gross's caliber on here. And then when you think back and you look at it, it's like you guys are unique, but at the same time, you're not unique. You're representative of the culture. You are unique as individuals, but you are representing how good our non-commissioned officer corps is in the United States Air Force. And I just really appreciate the time that you both spent with us. Learned a lot from both of you. I feel like I've got two new mentors. I am just so excited about being back up in Barnes next RSD because I get to come in, pop in and hang out with you again.
Yes, sir.
And see some more Barnstormers. And Chief Gross, I know that our paths are going to cross many, many more times over the years. And every time I spend a moment with you, I walk away richer. So thank you, sir.
I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, listeners. Catch us back here next time. Thank you.